Welcome back to CBS Sports HQ. I told you we would target men's college basketball this weekend, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Just take a look at that slate. Quality on quality, rivalries abound, and it wasn't all that long ago we had Alabama and Auburn in terms of a 1-2 nationwide. It's still pretty close to that, but we know the Tigers trying to bounce back after that loss in College Station. All right, let's tackle all of these with our Chip Patterson. We're going to go do it fast, we're going to do it heavy, and we're going to do it with quality. All right, so 8.5 is the line here for Bama and Auburn here. What can we take away from the first matchup, and what are you anticipating here in the second?
Oh, in the first matchup, I mean, that was Auburn brought the fight to Alabama. Alabama got outclassed in that game, and now you've got a situation where you go from Coleman Coliseum to now playing in the jungle against an Auburn team that is going to want to get right after a big letdown performance in that loss against Texas A&M. Now, look, Alabama has its own get-right motivations as well. You've lost 2 straight, but Tommy, I think this comes down to the basketball because what we saw against Florida, what we saw against Tennessee, you know, those defeats for Alabama is that Alabama is getting carved up on the interior of their defense. When I think about John Broome, when I think about the rest of these Auburn wings and the way that they can attack the rim, I think that's going to be a big weakness. Look, 8.5 is a big number to lay against an Alabama team with this much firepower, but consider this run of quality competition. Is there a chance the Tide run out of gas? I think so. I'll lay it with the Tigers. A
much tighter spread in St. John's and Marquette, but you think pace of play or maybe points at a premium in this one in the low 140s?
Yeah, 2 things that I'm looking at which have me leaning towards the under. Marquette's offense really for most of the 2025 calendar year has dropped off. And that is in terms of production efficiency and also just watching it. Options outside of Cam Jones seem to be limited, and Cam Jones' hero ball can be productive, but it's led to lower scores. And we've seen that with the under cashing in 7 of the last 8 Marquette basketball games. You compare that now with St. John's, who we know is elite defensively and also very poor at shooting 3-pointers. And so I see a lot of opportunities for us to be able to have a lower, grindier game that is very much done in the half court. A lot of 2-pointers, long 2s, and the kinds of shots that won't get you over the total.
All right, I ran into, for this next game, Mackenzie Brooks and asked her, what game do you love most on Saturday? Anywhere on the board? She said, I love Mizzou, laying the 5.5 against Kentucky, and you are on the same side as Mackenzie.
Oh, that is great to hear for my conference tournament sweats co-pilot right there, as we'll be together there in Fort Lauderdale next week breaking down conference tournament action. I agree with Ken's 100%. This Mizzou team has been absolutely nails at home in SEC play. They are 7-1 overall at home in conference play. They are 7-1 against the spread. And Tommy, I had to look under the hood. Why is this happening? Well, it is because Missouri is so much better defensively at home. We know Missouri can get out there and run, score 80, 90, 100 points. But when the Tigers are playing in Como, that defense steps up a notch in a big, big way. So with the home-road splits favoring Missouri's defense taking a step forward, I will ride the trends and say Missouri cashes another ticket at home.
All right, let's get to Duke in North Carolina. Chip, why are you on the over?
It's Duke, North Carolina. I don't know if you've seen these games, but I mean, it's a tennis match. I mean, it's just the way that these 2 teams play, and especially what we have seen from Duke in recent weeks. You know, they lose a player in Malik Brown, who is going to lead to a little bit of a downgrade in terms of their overall defensive numbers and defensive DNA. And North Carolina has been absolutely on fire from 3. Now, I don't expect them to be hitting 60% of their 3-pointers against this Duke team, not with how good Duke has been defensively. But I think especially playing at home, playing in a rivalry game, the Tar Heels are going to get up a lot of shots. And Duke will be able to answer, where I don't think North Carolina has the interior presence defensively to stop Cooper Flagg from being able to get what he wants at the rim. So I don't want to mess necessarily with the 10.5, though I would lean North Carolina. I do, however, want to take the over because I do think this is a game where at least one team could touch 90.
All right, let's end with a game that a line just posted here. Iowa State and K-State. So the Cyclones are laying 8.5, Chip, and you're going to feel comfortable laying that number?
This is it. No, it's not comfortable. I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now. I mean, this Iowa State team, I thought I knew them. I thought I knew exactly who they were. They were a group who, prior to the loss against BYU, were 19-1 when they had all 8 members of their rotation healthy. They were 3-6 without that. Now they are 19-2 after a very surprising overtime loss against BYU. But those 2 losses are in overtime and also to Auburn. I'm going to say that they come back with a vengeance, because if you want to add revenge, not only are you trying to get right after the humbling home loss to the Cougars, you're also trying to beat a Kansas State team that beat you when you were shorthanded. So I think Iowa State will give Kansas State their full attention. And if not, maybe this is a team that is just not going to regain the form that they had when they were 15-1 to start the year.
1:30 Eastern on CBS. Chip, don't go anywhere. We've got another segment with you to tackle another set of games. But just a reminder of our doubleheader on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus. Again, Iowa State laying those points at Kansas State. And then at 3:45 Eastern, it's Ohio State at Indiana. Of course, we've been talking about the Hoosiers being on the bubble. That one from Bloomington. All right, we'll hit that break, but when we come back, another handful of games, which includes Kansas hosting number 24 Arizona this weekend. Back here with Chip Patterson, I'm Tommy Tran. We got to get to these games and get to them fast. Houston at Baylor, Chip, going over.
Yeah, contrarian over here, and over in a Houston game. I know it's not something you're used to. Let's go back to the first Houston-Baylor game this season. It was remarkable to get 141 points on just 58 possessions. Houston was able to score at will. Baylor was able to score a lot, especially late in the second half. And so I do think that we're going to see that again here. Baylor's defense is not great. Let's say L.J. Cryer, the former Baylor Bear and Houston Star, he has a big game to help us take this one over.
Moving to South Carolina and Tennessee, we're learning the line now 15.5 the Vols are laying here. What do you want to do with it?
I'll go ahead and lay it. Let's look at South Carolina on the road against quality teams in the SEC. They lost to Missouri by 30. They lost to Florida by 21. They lost to Kentucky by 23. Like, have the Gamecocks been spunky wins against Texas and Arkansas? Yes, but Tennessee is not Texas and Arkansas. I will lay those points in Knoxville.
Florida hosting Ole Miss. They're double-digit favorites. But, Chip, you want to isolate the Florida team total this weekend?
Yeah, I was thinking about going with the full game over. One thing that stood out about Ole Miss, even though they've had a couple good wins recently, the defense has really slid over the last 5 to 6 games. And I just don't think that they've got the size to be able to stop Florida inside or at the rim. If Ole Miss is hitting his shots, then yeah, full game goes over. But we don't need to bet on that when we've got the option to just say Florida team total over, because the Gators will be able to score. No line yet in Texas Tech and Arizona State, but you lean Sun Devils in this one? I do. This is an Arizona State team that was still showing a lot of fight against Arizona. I mean, they just don't have enough horses to be able to go in a long race against the Wildcats. I could see Texas Tech maybe playing down just enough for Arizona State to stay inside what I imagine is going to be the somewhat hefty double-digit favorite. We're learning Clemson now 17.5-point favorites over Va Tech, but once again isolating the Tigers team total. Yeah, Virginia Tech's defense just got pummeled by North Carolina earlier this week, and the Hokies have just been playing out the string. The overs are actually 5-0 in the last 5 Clemson home games, but similar to the scenario we had earlier, I don't want to necessarily need to have Virginia Tech score points to get us over the total. I know that those Virginia Tech defensive woes will allow Clemson to do its part. I'll go Tigers team total over. Okay, let's get to a couple Big Ten games. No lines posted yet here, but we have Penn State at Wisconsin. I'll take Badgers. How about Wisconsin? 13-5-1 against the spread in conference play. That includes being 11-3-1 as a favorite. And I looked under the hood, Tommy. You want to know how that happens? It's when you are the #1 free throw shooting team in the country. Because when you are a favorite, you cover spreads by hitting your free throws. 11-3-1 is a favorite. They'll be a favorite here. I'll lay it with the Badgers. I wish I knew that trend, because I took the Badgers 4.5 against Michigan State over the weekend. All right, you live and learn. Northwestern and Maryland, Chip. Yeah, I'm going to go with Northwestern here. Would not be surprised to see a little bit of a letdown off that great win that Maryland had against Michigan in Ann Arbor. The offense for Maryland has been slowly starting to lose its dominance over the last couple of weeks. Now, they didn't even have a field goal for about the last 5 minutes of that win against the Wolverines. Northwestern is a quality enough team to be able to hang around what I do imagine will be a big spread.
Stanford, Louisville, Cardinals, plural, laying 11.5, but you like the Cardinal in the first half.
Yeah, because we don't want to trust them for 40 minutes after we saw them collapse against Notre Dame. A weird travel week right now for Stanford. You're in South Bend, Indiana. You're going to Louisville. You'll be in Charlotte, North Carolina for the ACC tournament next week. This is after a long, long trip at home. I think that Kyle Smith, the Stanford head coach, has gotten a lot out of Stanford this season in what is obviously very much a lost year one for them in a new league with a new head coach. But they've been just frisky enough recently for me to think that they can hang inside the first half number, but over 40 minutes, I expect Louisville will pull away.
All right, we got a handful left to go here. Texas A&M at LSU. We're learning the total's 141.5. You came into this one liking the under. Does that number look good to you now?
Yeah, I just sent Striker under. I didn't even need to look at the number. These are the two of the worst shooting teams in the SEC. Texas A&M maybe in a little bit of a letdown spot playing on the road in Baton Rouge against one of the worst teams in the conference. They win with offensive rebounding and defense. It's not with the shooting. So with all the shooting woes between these two teams, I'm just going to say under.
Utah and BYU. You've got BYU laying 12.5 in this one, Chet.
Yeah, the best way to avoid a letdown after a big win like BYU had on the road at Iowa State is for it to be your hated blood rival. Yeah, so BYU will snap right back into focus. I think BYU will take absolutely no mercy. And remember, this is a Utah team that fired its coach in the middle of the season in a somewhat unexpected move by a lot of people throughout college basketball to move on Craig Smith so early. They're already starting to think about the future. BYU is getting tuned up for a tournament run.
Let's get to the game we teased, Wildcats and Jayhawks. Jayhawks are small favorites, but you're targeting the total in the low 150s.
Yeah, how about the under in Arizona road games? It's interesting home road splits that I found when doing research on the Wildcats throughout the week. The defense travels, and the defense actually performs better on the road. That combined with a Kansas team that offensively just does not have a lot of flow at all. It's 7-2 to the under in Arizona road games. Kansas started the year on a huge under streak. Even though Arizona plays with pace, you're going to be able to see more possessions than Kansas might normally play with, but I just don't think there's going to be enough scoring with those possessions, so I'll go under the 151.5.
And lastly, Mississippi State and Arkansas Razorbacks, very small favorites at home, and you want to back that 1 or 1.5.
Yeah, I believe in the Hogs here. You know, Trayvon Brazile having his best game of the season just earlier in the week. The Arkansas, very much a hot and cold team, capable of nearly punching their ticket to the NCAA tournament and also nearly losing it, you know, in the same 10-day span. I think that this very talented roster will be able to get together in Bud Walton Arena, understand the assignment, take care of business, and win against Mississippi State.
All right, that is Chip Patterson. Chip, looking forward to having you here in Fort Lauderdale next week. Best of luck to you and all of our bettors in men's basketball. A reminder about Sunday's coverage on CBS, and we've got a lot. Michigan and Michigan State, the rematch from earlier in the year in Ann Arbor. Missouri Valley Conference title at 2:15 Eastern, and then the Women's Big Ten Conference Championship, 4:30 Eastern on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.